Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing today on America's national security. I want to start by asking the panel, I'm going to start with you, Mr. Sadler, if you're aware of how our founding fathers felt about imperialism and empires.
Well, we fought a revolution to go against it.
Right.
I think that's still true to this day.
What about you, Dr. Mobbs?
I would argue that it's no kings, just patriots.
Right, I want to ask you, I want to read some statements and see if you guys know who said this. The great rule of conduct for us in regard to foreign nations is in extending our commercial relations to have with them as little political connections as possible. Does anybody know who said that?
George Washington.
Yep, George Washington. How about this one? Peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none.
Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson. How about this one? The United States have no business in making conquests nor in aspiring to any kind of empire. The principal object of government is to secure the happiness of society, not to extend the boundaries of an empire. Anybody know who said that? Come on.
Can I guess?
Yep.
John Quincy Adams.
Yes, sir. Exactly. Why do you guys think that our founding fathers were so concerned with imperialism and empire building? Anybody know? Anybody?
Well, I think the lesson of American citizens under the British Empire was a very personal one, where you had soldiers in your house. It's a lot of why we have our Bill of Rights. The other is, I think they were probably also students of history, that those type of entanglements would basically bankrupt us and get us away from our core principles of democracy
Bingo.
and free society.
Bingo. Does it concern you guys that we're $36 trillion in debt, annual deficit of $2 trillion? As we sit here and we talk about the United States' global involvement. Do any of you guys, because I know you got this really, economics probably isn't your core study, but do any of you guys wonder when that tipping point is going to be, whether it's $40 trillion in debt, $50 trillion? Anybody ever wonder about that?
I wonder about it and worry about it because we ran deficits around 55–60% of GDP. When we were a global power, we're now at 120% plus and headed higher. We're going to go bankrupt.
I completely agree with you, which is why I believe that the United States should be very cautious in extending itself too far, and I believe in many ways that we have. And I say this, please understand, as somebody who dropped out of college my senior year to join the Navy, and then the week after 9/11 and do multiple deployments. So I do consider myself a patriot and somebody who loves this country, but I do believe we've extended ourselves way too far, and I think we should hearken back to some of the wisdom of our founding fathers. I want to now go into NATO. Mr. Sadler, what percentage of GDP is the United States paying right now for national defense?
Around about 3.5%.
What about the other countries in NATO?
You got UK and several others come in around 2.5% on a good day.
France, 1.9%, Italy, 1.5%, Canada, about 1.4%, Germany, 1.6%, Spain, around 1.2%. Do you think it's fair to the United States and our citizens that, you know, these other countries that we have an alliance with aren't spending even 2% or 3% of their GDP?
I'd say it's actually even worse than being fair. It's extremely dangerous and reckless on their part.
Absolutely. What about you, Dr. Mobbs?
I completely agree.
I want to read you guys a list of some things that we've recently uncovered about USAID, which I actually tried to defund by 50% last year. 1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. 70,000 for production of a DEI musical in Ireland. 2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. 47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. 32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. 2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. 6 million to fund tourism in Egypt, and I could go on and on and on. Do you think, Dr. Mobbs, that helps with the security of the United States, that type of spending?
Absolutely not, and actually it erodes our security.
Absolutely. Next, I want to talk about real quick, because I've heard some of my Democrat colleagues, rail against the Trump administration foreign policy. Who was the president when Russia invaded Georgia? Anybody know? Bush. Who was the president when Russia invaded Crimea? That was Obama, yeah. Who was the president when Russia invaded Ukraine?
First time or second time?
Second time.
Biden.
Yep. I seem to be missing President Trump's name from that list. So I do think that peace through strength works